The Nintendo Switch 2 has recently been officially announced by Nintendo, and they did a huge presentation. Now, days later, many people have actually had hands-on experience with the Nintendo Switch. So today we're gonna cover all the new features and specs. We're also gonna explore how I think Nintendo is positioning the Switch 2 to kind of gain back some of the handheld market that I believe they've lost, and they're probably a little bit worried going into the future with all of these PC handheld options out there, and if the Nintendo Switch 2 is a good option compared to just buying something like the Steam Deck. Let's get into it. So let's just get right into the features. This is a beautiful handheld device with a massive 7.9-inch, 120 frames per second, variable refresh VRR. It also has HDR support, so everything's gonna look amazing on the screen. Not to mention, it is full HD. Obviously, at a later date, they're going to release an OLED version of the Switch 2. But for now, I'm not complaining. This is going to be a beautiful screen. This is being powered by an ARM-based custom NVIDIA chip. Now this is where things get extremely interesting. This chip is definitely more powerful than the Steam Deck and is being fine-tuned for DLSS and frame generation. So I honestly think for many games, this is gonna be a game changer and what's going to allow this system to really age very well. Because we can expect that the Switch 2 is also going to have a very long shelf life. But the thing that is so incredible about the Switch is that games are ported over and they are meticulously optimized to run on this device. That's why we see games like The Witcher 3 and Hogwarts running on the Switch. They have to optimize it so much to make it run so perfectly on that device. And we'll get more into why I think that this ARM-based system with these games getting ported over to it is a big deal for the future of gaming and handhelds. Priced at $450, this already felt like it was pretty expensive, but that was pre the tariffs coming into effect, and now they're kind of backpedaling, and Nintendo of America's president, Doug Bowser? This dude's name is literally Bowser? Some people are saying it could go up as much as $540 or $600 for the Switch. This is all highly speculative because as of right now, Mr. Bowser says that they're just delaying the Switch 2 pre-orders. There's currently no new pre-order date, and whether the price of the console will change is unclear. But moving right along, they've upped the storage from their tiny, measly, 32 gigs in the Switch to 256 gigs of storage. However, little caveat here, not every micro SD is going to work. You have to specifically get the micro SD Express cards. Now, I don't think that's a huge deal breaker or bad. I think they're just future-proofing and getting to a standard that's kind of the best that we have right now, so that it will age well. This just means that microSD Express cards are going to become plentiful and a lot more affordable in the years to come. One of the best features about the Switch is actually just the dock. The dock now has a cooling fan built into it, which I believe is because this chip is actually going to get pushed a lot harder when it's docked, allowing for higher frame rates and maybe even some native 4K. This is gonna really unlock the power of this NVIDIA chip that's inside of this device. Because really, if you push it and you just give it all the juice that it wants, which you will not get in handheld mode, but when it's docked and it's being cooled by that fan, well then the sky is the limit. We are going to be getting such better performance out of this handheld, and we're gonna see a lot of games hitting that 120 hertz or being able to jump up to 4K resolution. It's going to be incredible. I'm very excited about the dock. One of the biggest upgrades to the Switch 2, well, the second biggest. The bigger screen is the first one. The second biggest and most noticeable life improvement are the Joy-Cons. They are much bigger, and I do believe that they're going to feel a lot better in your hands. They're still not gonna be perfect. They're still not going to suffice for long gameplays because they are still the same thickness, which is great news because it is going to truly be a portable handheld device. But not only are these going to be more ergonomic, better buttons, better joysticks, better everything, they also detach with this cool new magnetic mechanism, and then they turn into a mouse that you can use both of them to play different games, or you can use one for like first-person shooters, which is a big deal because games like Cyberpunk is going to be available on the Switch too. And you can run around Night City with a first-person shooter mouse. I'm actually very interested to try out this mouse feature. It's like they took little hints and notes from all the handhelds that are being released and they went, you know what? The Legion Go with these detachable kind of turns into a joystick mouse. Dumb. How could we make that better? They're like, what if you just flip it down so it's a little bit more like a mouse? Brilliant. It looks way, way better. And I'm actually very interested to try it.
You're holding the split Joy-Con, you put one down vertically on the table, that reticle appears, and now you have a functioning Joy-Con mouse.
What I am a little bit worried is like these games where you use both of them, do we have to sit at a desk to play these games? Because that seems very counter to the user experience of the Switch. When I'm sitting at my desk, I'm using like a desktop setup. I've got my whole gaming system. If I'm playing the Switch, I'm like in bed or I'm on the couch, something like that. So that's gonna be a little bit interesting if you need to like put it on your knee and try to like maneuver to get some features to work. We'll see. They also added dual USB-C. So now you have top and bottom, which is just an improvement of life, very helpful. But they also added this because when it's docked, you can plug in their little camera that's gonna unlock things like chat, but it also does some of these like in-game where if you're all playing, your face becomes like on the screen and by your character, which from their presentations, none of it seemed that amazing. But I could see a future in which this camera is less about like, oh wow, your face is on the screen. But I could see it becoming a thing that tracks you in the game and you jump and you move and you interact with the game on the screen.
There is a camera that you can buy for your Switch 2 that's $50. We let it basically film us and put us in Mario Party mini games where we're coming in and out of pipes. We yelled and jumped around and it registered those movements and sounds, and based on which of us could scream louder, we got awarded points.
All right, we can go over some more of the features, but that's kind of the baseline of what is new about the Switch 2. It's interesting because at face value, it really looks just like a bigger Switch. And in reality, it basically is a bigger Switch, but the jump in performance is so massive. And the fact that they put a 120 hertz screen on this device, I really believe they did that to future-proof it. They're just coming out saying, you know what? Not all games are gonna play 120 hertz. And with the future of frame gen and DLSS, it's looking so good and becoming so usable. And with this chip that is designed to do these types of things, I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with how good this is going to age. And in 2 years, 3 years, with these updates and games incorporating the newest technology, how crazy of games we're gonna be able to play on the Switch 2. And how it's gonna be playing at like 10 TDP, as opposed to these handhelds that are like cranking out 25, 35 watts, or the Steam Deck at like 17. Okay, features out of the way. What do we really need to talk about? When they dropped that Elden Ring trailer, I was just like, dang, we're gonna go here, we're gonna do it. Nintendo is seeing this world of handheld PCs coming out, and they're saying, no. We're not gonna allow this to just sweep over our innovation of the Switch, which boomed and started the handheld revolution. Now, there were many, many handhelds before, but the Switch was really the catalyst that made it mainstream. And then there was this long period of nothing until the Steam Deck came out and completely changed everything about handheld gaming, and now we have this amazing handheld PC gaming world. But the problem for Nintendo is that these handheld PCs allow us to gather and have these incredible game libraries where we can buy these games from a plethora of different game stores, allowing us to get the best deals and the most games. Obviously, Nintendo has proprietary games all the Marios, Zeldas, Donkey Kong, all these kinds of games you're not going to get on your handheld PC. So if those are the most important to you, it's a no-brainer. You're going to buy the Switch 2. But if those aren't necessarily the most important thing to you, I still think there is a case to make in 2025 to buy the Switch 2. Because the Switch 1 really proved itself by releasing games like The Witcher 3, Skyrim, and then they even started porting over games like Hogwarts, and it actually works on the Switch 1, which is miraculous. I'm really excited to see these games like Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077 over on this beautiful, super thin, almost 8-inch, 120 hertz screen. Now they can do this with the Steam Deck, and I believe this is why the Steam Deck is not releasing a new Steam Deck every single year, because they understand what Nintendo understands. Game companies are optimizing specifically for the Steam Deck, and then all the other handhelds are just kind of like at the mercy of if it runs good because of that. That's what Steam Deck is really pushing and hoping for. But again, the efficiency of an ARM chip compared to these chips in these PCs is just not even comparable. I digress. That's a lot to say that I believe Nintendo is making a push to get a lot of the PC market to come and make ports for the Switch 2. I believe they want to build out a robust PC gaming library so that you can actually confidently make the choice between the Switch or a Steam Deck, and you wouldn't feel super left out. Okay, but none of this matters if you want to play Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, or Breath of the Wild, or Mario, or anything like this. And if that's the case, which is, for me, I definitely want to play these games, and I am so excited to replay Breath of the Wild with its enhanced graphics packs, and finally, thank you, a stable, high frame rate. Yo, these games have struggled. We have never been able to experience Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom at a real frame rate. These games just were too big, too ambitious, which is fine. I'm happy that they did that. I didn't want them to dumb it down and make it not great. It's playable. It's an RPG. You're running around. It's fine. But I would be lying if I told you that I was not excited about docking this bad boy, getting it to upscale to 4K, and hopefully running at like 120 frames per second sometimes, maybe. But even if it was just 60, locked at 60 would be incredible. They've already been teasing out Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, some Switch 1 versus Switch 2 footage, and I'm gonna put some on the screen right here, and we're gonna check out just how much better it is looking. I'm so excited. Again, I think even the fidelity, though looks much better, is incredible. I wasn't like really bummed out on the Switch 1 about how it looked. It looks great. What I do notice, and I think everyone does, is when you walk into a village and the frame rate drops to like 25 frames per second. And you're just like, what is happening? And if you look at this footage, now we're gonna not only get better graphics, we're gonna have a nice, stable, high frame rate, which is gonna be awesome. I cannot wait for this. I'm also very excited to dock this system on my OLED TV and experience these games in 4K glory, HDR, high refresh rates. It's gonna be really nice. Now, something that I'm not super excited about is Nintendo is charging for everything. To be able to experience the games that we already bought for the Switch, but in the new Switch 2 version, you're gonna have to buy like an upgrade pack, which is gonna unlock all of these features, which I'm like, that's fine, I guess. But that's another downfall of Nintendo versus like the Steam Deck. Because games in the Steam library or these other places, typically, they just get updates. Like The Witcher got a massive next-gen update that cost $0. $0! Nintendo would never do this. Nintendo is going to charge you for everything. And their whole game system and how they're charging for it, I'm really not a fan. The closed ecosystem that Nintendo has created puts Apple to shame. They are so intense about everything that they do and touch and make and have it in their own little bubble that if you try to do anything, they will find you. they will find you. Okay, but not only will they find you, they're gonna charge you. They're gonna make you pay for that cartridge, which is actually nothing. It's just a key that unlocks a digital download, but then if you wanna play that game, you gotta put that cartridge into your system. So if you lose the cartridge, which is nothing, you can't play your digital game because you don't have the cartridge. That costs you $10 more or something like that. So not only are there games going in the $70 to $80, you might also end up buying this $10 upcharge for a cartridge, which isn't even the game. So it's a terrible deal. Some of these games I think are gonna be $90 if you do that. The upgrade, because it's a Switch 1 game, so that's gonna be another, I hear they're speculating like $10 to $15, which again, they can do whatever they want. And if it's $10 for me to upgrade Tears of the Kingdom, great. I'm gonna do that, and that's fine. And I don't have any problems with that. They can do whatever they want. But it's just every single little thing they're charging you here, that, this, that. That's it. I'm very excited about playing Breath of the Wild, the enhanced version. So excited. But that's what I think. So is the Nintendo Switch 2 gonna be worth getting? Especially if you already have the Switch 1 and something like the Steam Deck, should you upgrade to the Switch 2? Well, that's kind of a hard question, and honestly, it really depends on what games you want to play and what kind of an experience you want when you're playing those games. Right at the release of the Switch 2, you honestly really might not need to get this device. But in a few years, as they start releasing more titles that are specifically only for Nintendo and only for the Switch 2, that's when it starts becoming even more of something that you have to start considering upgrading to. As of the actual release date, there might not be a reason to upgrade to this. Now, I've already brought it up, but the biggest downfall of Nintendo is their closed ecosystem compared to all these beautiful handhelds that are coming out that are PCs, because you can buy games on all the different storefronts, and these storefronts are all competing with each other. So they're getting all these different deals and sales and all this kind of stuff, allowing you, the consumer, the best options and the best prices. So you can build a massive library of games for so much cheaper on something like the Steam Deck or any of these other handheld options. That is one of the biggest downfalls of the Nintendo. You are at the mercy of Nintendo. And not only are you at the mercy of Nintendo, say you build out these huge libraries of these games, what are these digital games gonna be in 10, 15, 20 years from now? We kind of have history to tell us what these are gonna be. So that is also highly concerning when Nintendo's jacking up the prices of these games and we don't even own the game. Some speculations I have are this: that beautiful 7.9-inch screen is soon going to be in abundance, which means, hopefully, we're gonna start seeing some handhelds with these very same spec 7.9 screens all of a sudden appearing all over the place. And those screens are going to be incredibly high quality and very affordable. So that is huge, and I'm very excited. I don't know when that's gonna start happening, but I think it's inevitable that we will start seeing some 7.9 LCD, 120 variable refresh rate HDR screens coming to many other handheld devices. Thank you, Nintendo. Thank you, manufacturing. Another thing that we cannot downplay is that this ARM chip system is so much more efficient and it's going to crush. So we're seeing these incredibly efficient chips running these AAA games, and they're not really getting the love that Nintendo's gonna get. Nintendo is going to get some huge titles. They're gonna have a massive game library being ported over to this system. And I hope what this does is create systems and ways of porting that's going to make it easier for game developers to port to other types of ARM-based chips. Ultimately, we need to get the Steam Deck with an ARM-based system. That would be incredible. But it's gonna be a very difficult transition because the whole entire system is completely different. But if and when we get to that point where these games can be ported over, and maybe there's going to be a better streamlined system for the developers to do something like that, we're gonna start seeing handhelds coming out with ARM-based chips, and we're gonna start seeing our phones being able to like function like a Steam Deck and install like a Steam OS on your Android device. Maybe. I don't know how far away that is, but we're definitely moving in that direction. Let me know what you think about the Switch 2. Is it something that you're excited about? Are you gonna pick one up? Are you gonna pre-order it? What's the deal? Are you gonna stick with your Steam Deck or the future of handheld gaming devices? That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for joining. I will see you in the next one.